Now let's read the question clearly. X, Y, and Z play cricket. The runs scored by X and Y are in the ratio of 3:2. Y's runs to Z's run are in 3:2 ratio. Together they score 342 runs. How many runs did each score? So here X, Y, and Z are playing cricket. The ratio of runs between X and Y is 3:2, and the ratio of runs between Y and Z is also 3:2. Okay. Total runs total runs that they have scored is 342, because if you see here it says together they score 342 runs. So total runs scored are 342. So we are supposed to find out separately how much runs did X score, separately how much did Y score, and separately how much did Z score. Okay, so this is our question. Now let us define these variables, and then we will have to find out X is to Y is to Z. And like the previous problem, we will again divide the runs. The total 342 runs has to be divided in the continuous ratio of X is to Y is to Z. Okay, so that is the total problem. Now let us start determining few of the variables. Okay, I hope the question was clear. Any doubts in the question part? Solution. Now, ratio of runs between X and Y is 3:2. Correct? Then again, ratio of runs between Y and Z is also 3:2. Oops, sorry, 1 second. 3:2. So ratio of X is to Y is to Z is equal to how much? So how do we find out? Multiply X is to Y ratio by 3 and multiply Y is to Z ratio by 2. Did you understand what I did here? This part of multiplication? Yes or no? Okay, good. So we are going to take the first ratio, X is to Y, which is 3:2, and we are multiplying this with 2. So what do we get? 3 2s are 6 is to 2 2s are 4. Oh, sorry. We have to do it with 3, not multiply it with 3. So 3 3s are 9 is to 3 2s are 6. Now Y is to Z is also 3:2. Now multiply this with 2. So 3 2s are 6 is to 2 2s are 4. So therefore, X is to Y is to Z is equal to 9 is to 6 is to 4. So this is the important ratio that we require. Correct? So after this, now divide 342 runs. This is the total number of runs they have scored. Now divide this in the ratio of 9 is to 6 is to 4. Did you all understand? Now X runs 342 runs into X ratio is 9 divided by, what is the sum of ratio? 9 plus 6 plus 4 is 19, right? So 9 by 19. Can you say me how many runs you will get? Y runs is, okay, we get 162. Okay, good Imran. 162 runs. That is X runs. Now similarly, let us find for Y as well as for Z. Now Y runs is 342 into 6 by 19. So 108 runs. Good. And then Z runs is 342 into 4 by 19. So that will be 72 runs. Very good. Is it clear? Any doubts in this problem? Okay, good. So this is ratios. Okay, all these problems are ratios. Now continued with ratios, we have to learn what are proportions. So let us learn proportions. Now the next one is proportion. Proportions are nothing but equal ratios. Okay, the meaning of proportions are equal ratios. Now we know what are ratios. When the two quantities with same unit and the quantities will be of same kind. When we compare those two, that will be called as a ratio. Now when you have two equal ratios, that is called as proportion. Okay, so proportion represents two equal ratios. Now, if it is two equal ratios, now one ratio is A is to B. This is called one ratio. Now, which means in one ratio, you will have two quantities. Correct? In one ratio, you'll have two quantities. Now, suppose when they are talking about two ratios, let's say A is to B is one ratio, C is to D is another ratio. So we will have together two quantities of this ratio and two quantities of this ratio. We will have totally four quantities. So in a proportion, usually you will have four quantities, which is nothing but two ratios. Did you understand this basic? Correct, Imran. Yes. But we are not taking that is as to, that four dots we are not taking particularly. We will be using equal to in that place. Okay. So in this proportions, since we will be taking two ratios, which means four quantities, how do we represent them? As rightly Imran said, A is to B is as to C is to D. This also is a representation of proportion. But here we are, instead of going to is as to, we are just using equal to. So the first ratio A is to B is equal to second ratio C is to D. Okay. So this is called as proportion. This is called as proportion. Now, in this proportion, the first and the last. Okay, now before going to first and the last, we will learn what are the terms called. Okay, so this is called as, A is called as first term or first proportional. First term or first proportional. B is called as second term or second proportional. C is called as third term or third proportional, and D is called as fourth term or fourth proportional. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. First term, first proportional, second term, second proportional, third term, third proportional, fourth term, fourth proportional. It's not proportion, it is proportional. Okay, if you see here, it is proportional. Okay, that is one more point. Now, after that, the next point is the first and the last term are called as extremes, and the middle terms here, B and C, are called as means. Okay, so the first and the last term are called as extremes. They are to the two different extremes. And the middle terms, that is B and C, are called as means. Is it clear until here? Any doubts? Any doubts in this? Okay. Now let us move on further. Now we understood A is to B is equal to C is to D. These two are called as extremes and these two are called as means. Now, the rule of proportion is product of extremes is equal to product of means. Excuse me. Which means A into D is equal to B into C. Product of extremes, product of means. Okay, we are going to solve maximum problems based on this rule only. Product of extremes is equal to product of means. Okay, A into D is equal to B into C. Now we have to understand different forms of proportion. We also understood different types of ratios, right? Now similarly, you have different forms of proportion. Now let us understand the proportion one after the other. The first proportion is direct proportion. Now in direct proportion, if one of the quantity or if one of the proportion or the term increases, the other term will also increase. If one of the term decreases, the other term will also decrease. Let us understand using an example. Now, if you see the example here, working days and wages paid on daily basis. Okay, a person is getting, let's say A is a person who is getting wages on daily basis. He is a daily wage worker. Now, if he works for the whole day only, he's been paid the amount. He's been paid the salary on daily basis. Okay. If the number of days he is working is increasing, the wages that he is getting every day will also be increasing. Now, if you see here, if 100 rupees is paid as wages per day, then the total for 2 days is 200, 4 days 400, 10 days 1000. Number of days are increasing. His salary is also increasing. Clear? Now, similarly, If the number of days decreases, if the number of days is coming down, from 10 days, he is only working 4 days or he is only working 1 day. So, since it is a daily wage, only for the day he has worked, he will receive the amount. So, if the number of days decreases, the salary also will decrease. Okay. So, if A increases, B will also increase. If A decreases, B will also decrease. This is direct proportion. Both will increase, both will decrease. Understood direct proportion? Now, the second one, indirect or inverse proportion. Now, this is opposite of direct proportion, as the name says by itself. If one of the quantity increases, the other one will decrease. If one of it decreases, the other one will increase. Again, let us understand with an example. So, if you see here, speed of a vehicle and time taken to reach a fixed destination. If we increase the speed of the vehicle, we will be able to cover more distance and within less time, we will reach the place. Suppose you want to reach college from your home, okay, and you're going in a two-wheeler. If you drive very fast, let's say you're going at 60 kilometers per hour speed. Now, if you go at 60 kilometer per hour speed, you will be able to reach college within 15 minutes. Okay, you'll be able to reach college within 15 minutes. Let us just write down here. 60 kilometer, 15 minutes. Okay, but if you go at 40 kilometer speed, you'll be able to reach within, let's say, 25 minutes. So here the speed is decreasing and the time is increasing, correct? From 60, the speed is decreased to 40. The time from 15 minutes has increased to 25 minutes. So if you see, one is decreasing, the other is increasing. Correct? And if you see the reverse way, from 40, if you want to increase your speed, the time taken will decrease. From 25 minutes to 15 minutes, the time taken will decrease. So here, one is increasing, the other one is decreasing. And this will become inverse proportion. When one quantity increases, the other quantity decreases. It is called as inverse proportion. Is it clear? Did you all understand the inverse proportion? Now, next type is simple proportion. Now, simple proportion is only when you have four quantities or four terms, A, B, C, D. So, A is to B is equal to C is to D is a simple proportion. There is no much complication of too many other parts or too many other quantities. Okay. Now, when you have a simple proportion, you can solve the problems if one of the proportion is missing. Suppose they have given you the data of B, C, and D, and you don't know what is the value of A. So, using the simple proportions and the rule of proportion, you will be able to find out the value of A. Okay, three data will be given where you can, using the three data, you will be able to find out the other one which is left out. Okay, so that will be the rule of three which you will be applying for simple proportion. It's not too much complicated to solve. You will just have three quantities and one missing. To find out that one missing, you'll use all the three quantities. We will be solving the sums regarding that. So that is simple proportion. Now after that, the next one is compound proportion. Now compound proportion is nothing but when the number of related terms exceeds more than 4. Now you just had A is to B is equal to C is to D. Correct? Now you have A is to B, C is to D, E is to F, G is to H. So you have more than 2 ratios involved in the proportion. That is called as compound proportion. Okay, that is called as compound proportion. When you have more than 2 ratios. So that is simple and compound. And the next one is continued proportion. Now in ratios, we understood X is to Y is to Z, A is to B is to C. That was continuous or continued ratio. Now similarly in proportion, you will have continued proportion. Here, the second term A is to B will be same for the second ratio as the first term. See, B is same here in A is to B and B is to C. Okay. And then C is to D. C and C are same. B and B are same. This is called as continued proportion, where one term is being repeated again and that will be continued from one ratio to another where it forms a proportion. So this is called as continued proportion. Understood? Any doubts until that? Now the last type of proportion is mean proportion. Now mean proportional is whenever we have three proportion given, A, B and C are in a continuous proportion. For example, okay, like how we have ratio, no? Similarly, if it is A is to B is to C, then if two values are given and let's say we have to find out the value of B. It is very easy to find the value of B by finding the square root of A and C. You will get the value of B, and this B is called as mean proportional. The center one out of the three data, the center one is called as the mean proportional of A and C. I'll repeat it again. Listen carefully. Now, mean proportional is when there is three data, that is A, B and C. These are in continuous proportion. Now, how do you write this data? A is to B is equal to B is to C. This is the proportion. Okay. So when you have a data like this, the B is called as the mean proportional. Now, mean proportional of A and C. Now, how did they come to that formula of square root of AC? Now, A is to B is nothing but A by B. B is to C is nothing but B by C. We have learned this in ratios. A is to B can also be written as A by B, and B is to C can also be written as B by C. Correct? Then, if you see here, now if you cross multiply the values, A into C will be on one side and B into B will be on the other side. Correct? So, A into C is equal to B into B is B square. Now, we have learned through equations and matrices and everything that if square goes on to the other side, it becomes square root of AC is equal to B. Right? Square root of AC is equal to B. So that is how you derive the complete mean proportional. So we'll also have few problems under mean proportional. Any doubts in the mean proportional? Okay. The next part that you're supposed to understand is properties of proportion. First one is invertendo. If A is to B is equal to C is to D is given, you can exchange the places of A and B and D and C. If you see here, A is to B. So if you exchange their places, it will become B is to A. Then C is to D. If you exchange their places, it will become D is to C. Correct? So this is called as invertendo. So we are exchanging the places of the quantities or the ratios given. Next, alternando. Alternando is alternate. So if A is to B is equal to C is to D is in proportion, we are exchanging this only B and C here. See, if you see A, leave out B, alternate C. So A is to C will be one part and B is to D will be on the other part. Did you all understand? So here, if it's in the normal proportion, if you exchange the places of B and C alone, it is called as alternando. Next, componendo. Now, componendo is if A is to B is equal to C is to D is in proportion, A plus B is to B. Now, in place of A, you have A plus B. It is compounding. So, A plus B is to B plus C plus D is to D. Okay. So, that is your componendo. A plus B is to B is equal to C plus D is to D. Then dividendo. This property, when it is in proportion, you're dividing. Dividendo, division. So A minus B. Here you had A plus B. Here it is A minus B is to B is equal to C plus D by C. Here you have C plus D. Here it is C minus D. So C minus D is to D. Okay, so this is dividendo. And the last one is adding both componendo and dividendo. We are clubbing both of them. So if you see here, it is A plus B and A minus B. So one term will be A plus B, the other term will be A minus B. One term will be C plus D, the other term will be C minus D. So A plus B is to A minus B, C plus D is to C minus D. So this is componendo and dividendo. Understood? Properties of proportions. Can we go to the problems directly? Shall we start? Okay. Now, the first problem is about finding the missing proportional. Find the fourth proportional to 6, 14 and 15. Okay. So they have given us the data of 3. So we have to find out the last proportional. So first what we will be doing here is we will be deriving or assuming one of the proportion to be x. So let the fourth proportional be x. Okay, let the fourth proportional be x. Then then 6 is to 14 is equal to 15 is to x. This will be our proportion. We have 3 terms, 6, 14 and 15. So 6 is to 14 is one proportion. Take it as per the given order is equal to 15 is to x. Okay, these are in proportion. Now, by rule, now we know the rule of proportion, that is, by rule, product of extremes is equal to product of means. So product of extremes, we have the extremes, we have the means. Now let us use this rule and let us calculate. So product of extremes is 6 into x is equal to product of means is 14 into 15. These two are extremes and these two are means. Now simplify. 6x is equal to 14 into 15 is 210. Okay, good. Thank you. So x is equal to 210 divided by 6. Can you say me what will be the value? 210 divided by 6. X will be, therefore, x is 35. Correct? Yes, very good. So the fourth proportional is 35. So this is how you find the missing proportion from the given one. Did you all understand? Any doubts in this problem? Okay. Now try solving this. So let the fourth proportional be x. Therefore, 10 is to 20 is equal to 30 is to x is in proportion. So product of me, write the formula. Product of extremes is equal to product of means. So product of extremes is 10 into x is equal to 20 into 30. So x is equal to 20 into 30 by 10. So x is equal to 60. So this is the answer. So therefore the fourth proportional is 60. Write that down. Write the conclusion. Therefore the fourth proportional is 60. Clear? Yes? Now, you have similar 4 questions where you have to solve. You have to solve in the same, using the same rule of proportion. Product of extremes is equal to product of means. Okay. You have these 4 problems which you'll have to solve as practice question. Okay. Now moving further, let us move on. Find the third proportional to 6 and 24. Now, if you see here, we have only 3 proportions. We don't have more than that. Okay, Imran, you're saying me the first answer there. 200 is correct. Good. Later you can solve the rest of them. Okay. Now listen. Now here we have 3 proportions. So if you remember, just now we understood mean proportional. When you have 3 numbers given where the B, that is the center value, will be the mean proportional. So using that, we are supposed to find out the third proportion here. Okay. So to start with solution, let the third proportional be x. Therefore,